And before we got started today, I went and looked at who had registered for the session. And I've noticed that we have a really broad range of attendees joining us today, and I'd like to thank you for participating. I know we all have a lot on our schedules and a lot going on, so I just want to thank you for taking the time to join us today. My name is Dawn Cipriano McCafferty, and I serve as the Assistant Director for the Passport to Careers program. With that, let's get started. I'm also going to ask you for some grace as I'm trying to juggle a couple of screens here, so be patient. All right, you might notice that we're in a webinar format, and all participants are muted to help reduce background noise. If you would like to ask a question, please type it into the Q&A box located on your control panel. We are lucky today to have both Calvin Rollmaker and Carla Idle-Corwin acting as our session moderators. They're going to go ahead and review the questions that you ask, and then they'll share them with us. Now, I just want to let you know that there are several natural stopping points throughout the session that will allow me to pause for questions. We'll do our best to answer all of them, but if we run out of time or if I'm not able to answer them, then we will definitely get back to the person who is asking the question and make sure that your issue is resolved.
Dawn, can you have participants confirm that they can hear? We have one participant indicating they cannot hear, and they may not have clicked the join computer audio.
Okay. Yeah, let's see.
Others can hear, so we're good.
Okay. Okay, very good. Do you have any tips for how that might be resolved, Carla?
Usually it's when you enter into the Zoom, it will ask if you want to join by computer or phone audio at the user's desktop.
Okay. The other thing is in the meeting invitation itself, I think that there is a phone number. If you can't hear me over your computer, you can always call in as well. Okay, so with this, I'll just quickly review the information that I'm going to be covering today. Of course, we'll be talking about the impacts of the program's full expansion. We'll quickly go over some of the portal functions, and I'll share some information about resources available. And of course, you will have an opportunity to ask questions. So before we get into the technical stuff, I just want to acknowledge all of the work, grit, and heart that all of you have poured into your work to support Passport students. Sometimes I find myself, just personally, I find myself getting caught up in all of things like administration, the fiscal responsibility, paperwork, meeting compliance, juggling calendars, making sure students are making academic progress, timelines, all of these types of things. Sometimes they get me bogged down in the work that we're trying to do. All of these things are necessary, but when I start feeling bogged down by them, I try to use reminders to help keep me focused on why we do what we do. When I was in the office, I have a bulletin board up in my office, and I have pictures of several students that I've formed really close connections with. And anytime I start to go like, oh my gosh, this is really stressing me out, I take a look at those pictures and I remember like, okay, this is why we're doing the work that we're doing. So I'm going to stop screen sharing here for a second, and then I'm going to bump into a PowerPoint, a YouTube video. So just give me 1 second here. Let me get this pulled up. All right, I'm hoping you can all see this. Carla, can you confirm?
Yes, it's visible.
Okay, thank you.
Hey friends, I just want to reach out to you today. I know that I needed it at some point in my life.
Hi, my name is Fidel Chishungo.
Go to college.
I remember living in 19 different cities, going front room to front room. Life was not always easy, and sometimes I felt like the world was out to get me.
I was a foster care kid, and I was low income, and started studying for professional flying. I talked to one of my advisor and told them my concern of not being able to finish the program because I didn't have the financial aid to be able to do so.
I think the hardest part about being in foster care for me was just never knowing where I would be next or what would happen in my future.
I want you to know that you're not who you are despite going through things. You are who you are because of adversity. College Success Foundation's out there to help you. I'm now in grad school. I'm with College Success, and I'm about to start a brand new career working with students with special needs, so I'm excited for the future.
Passport has been paying for some of my tuition, my flight training, and because of it, I'm almost completing my professional flying because of the Passport Scholar.
And when I found out that there were scholarships out there to help me go to college, it really changed the whole way I thought about my future, because now I had some predictability and I was able to go to school and get all of my schooling paid for. And now I have a degree. I'm debt-free, and a lot of that is thanks to the Passport Scholarship and all the support they gave me, as well as the financial support.
Sometimes I needed that wake-up call, so I'm hoping that this message here today can be that wake-up call, can be that thing that you need.
So I encourage everybody to please look into Passport Scholar and see if you are qualified, because if you are, it will make a really big difference in your life and in terms of you making the college reality.
The people at the Passport Scholarship really helped me, so definitely check out the Passport Scholarship, go to school, it's life-changing.
I'm doing it, and I think you guys also can, so please look into it. Thank you.
So as you can see, this was a partnership that we did with the College Success Foundation to create a marketing piece for Passport students. So, but what I want to point out is that this is the student population that you're working with. These are actual Passport students, and we can see clearly that the program is helping them. So I'm going to go ahead and go back to my PowerPoint presentation.
You're good.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. All right, so just a little bit of background information here for those in the audience who may not be as familiar with the changes that Passport has experienced over the past several years. In 2018, the legislature passed a bill that gradually phased in expanded student eligibility for Passport. The program changes also included the option for students to pursue either a college credential or an apprenticeship program. Prior to the expansion, eligibility for the program was narrow and limited the number of students that were supported. A year or so before the expansion was initiated, House Bill 6274 challenged Washington to become #1 in the nation for foster youth high school completion, post-secondary enrollment, and post-secondary completion. Washington State could not move the needle by serving that small number of students that were originally marked as eligible in the program. The 2021 academic year program expansion, in the 2021 academic year, the program expansion was fully implemented, serving students who experienced foster care at any point after their 13th birthday and unaccompanied homeless youth. So although the program serves students pursuing both apprenticeships and post-secondary pathways, college pathways, this session right here is primarily going to be covering the college pathways. So aside from what was mentioned in the previous slide, students must also meet this basic criteria. Students must complete a FAFSA or WASFA and attend an eligible institution in the state of Washington. Because of Washington's separation of church and state laws, students may not pursue a degree in theology. And then Passport students must be Washington residents and enroll in college prior to age 22 They have 15 quarters of eligibility, and their eligibility expires at age 27. So as I'd mentioned earlier, the program has expanded significantly in a relatively short period of time. Prior to the passport expansion, the number of eligible students was limited to those who had been in state foster care for at least 1 year after their 16th birthday and had emancipated from care. Eligibility is much broader now, and the program is serving quite a few more students. Now, I point this out not just to show you how many students are being served or how much money the state has invested in the program, but also to recognize the added work that you as financial aid administrators are taking on to support this population of students. I am sincerely grateful to you for that work that you're doing. So as you can see, in a relatively short period of time, the program has tripled in size. And just a note here, the numbers for 2021, those numbers are not yet finalized, and I'm expecting that number to increase by the time we actually officially close the academic year. So earlier this year, in consideration of the large increase of eligible students and the limited funds available, WSAC had to make a decision to cut passport awards to $2,000. They were previously $4,500 for the academic year. We also asked institutions to refrain from awarding summer quarter scholarships, which in the past we typically do award summer term. In addition to the scholarship cuts, WSAC also had to make some adjustments to how schools were receiving the institutional support funds. Luckily, the agency put forth a request for additional funding to be able to serve eligible students, and we're happy to report that the legislature has supported that request. With the passing of the state budget, Passport received an additional $3.6 million for the 2021 supplemental funding. Back on May 11th, you might remember I sent out an email notifying institutions that they could award students a maximum of $5,000 for the regular 2021 academic year, and that includes retroactive awards for the full year. Passport student support funds are also going to be dispersed the same way as they were in the past. So once we find out, who's enrolled and who's been awarded and paid, then WSAC will go ahead and process those payments to institutions for the support of Passport students. And the other adjustment that we made was that Passport students can now receive summer funding as well. So in the next 2 years, the state has budgeted about $6.9 million. It's a little over that each year for the Passport program. So the state has invested quite a bit of money into the program. So I'm going to pause here and ask for any questions. I can guess that there might be some, especially about awarding and the increase in funding.
We have a question. Is the summer funding retroactive to summer 2020?
So if it was a summer one, yes.
And there was one other question regarding the availability of the PowerPoint slides, and I did type in an answer indicating that the slides will be made available on our website as well as sent out to all attendees. Next question, the adjustments to the amount in awarding this year. Not sure what the question is. Yes, that is what we are talking about. And
yeah, so the students were initially awarded $2,000. That was their maximum award. And then we sent out notification that students financial aid offices can go ahead and adjust those awards up to $5,000 maximum, as long as the student has financial need.
Would you be able to send out the link to the Passport to Careers video as well, possibly when sending out the slides?
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to do it. It's also, so the Washington Passport Network has a YouTube channel, and all of our trainings, which I'll talk about this a little bit later, but all of our trainings are on that YouTube channel. And this marketing piece is also posted on there. But yeah, we can definitely send that link out.
If a student didn't verify Washington residency, but does so for summer, can they get retroactive funds for 2021?
It's going to depend on whether on when. So if the institution, if it's just a timing thing and the institution hasn't determined that student's residency yet, but the institution decides like, oh yeah, okay, the student attended and they were in fact a Washington resident starting in fall quarter, then they would be able to. But if they're just determining that now, then no, it wouldn't be a retroactive.
For awarding retroactive funds, will the rules of credit completion still apply? Would a student need to complete at least half time to be able to receive the increase?
Yes.
Is that $5,000 max for the regular award year, or does that max include summer?
No, that's for the regular, sorry, I cut you off. That's for the regular academic year. Summer is in addition to that.
You answered the question, that second part of the question, so I won't read it. It was about the additional summer funds. We use state work study grants to backfill Passport. Can we have students keep their state work study grant and give them more Passport if they have unmet need?
Yes, I believe so. We might need to dig into that a little bit more.
So it has been approved to go ahead and increase to the 5,000 if eligible, and we can start requesting funds.
Well, I'm going to get to that in a little bit. We're still waiting for, so I believe that the governor has signed the budget already, but we're still waiting for our fiscal office to say like, okay, here's your allocations. Yes, you can go. We have everything ready to go. We are going to be sending you an email the moment that is available. Our portal has been updated so that our awards are, we've increased the maximum award in the portal. All of the pre-work is done. We're just waiting for that green light button to go, and then and we'll notify you as soon as we find out. Because we know this is a time-sensitive thing.
Sorry. Regarding the earlier question about Washington residency, if they are verified for summer, though, they can get summer 21 scholarship.
Yes.
$5,000 maximum, how much per term max?
Well, I have to do my math here. So just divide the 5,000 by either, so it's either 2,500 or
For semester school.
yeah, for a semester school, or my phone is off.
1667?
Yes, that sounds about right.
Yeah, 1667 a term for a quarter. And I think we are caught up with all of the questions.
Okay, awesome. So it might not seem like this is a big deal, but this is kind of a big thing. Over the past year, we've been working on improving our data exchanges with partner organizations to help better serve our students and the post-secondary institutions. WSAC and DCYF, so you might be aware of this one, but this was kind of a big hurdle to overcome. WSAC and DCYF developed a comprehensive data sharing agreement for 3 programs. There's the Passport to College program, the College Bound Scholarship program, and for Setup. Student information is sent to WSAC on a monthly basis and automatically populates the portal for each program. The second agreement is with OSPI, and this provides WSAC with documentation and verification of a student's unaccompanied homeless status. This work is, it's going to be pretty similar to the DCYF foster care verification process that we have in place. And we're still in the process of doing this. It isn't fully implemented yet. I know we have some deadlines next week that we're going to be responding to OSPI on, but this is something that I'm expecting to be probably in place in the next couple of months or so. So that should help you with like the verification of a student's unaccompanied homeless status. And then finally, WSAC just recently, I think it was maybe last week or 2 weeks ago, we finalized an agreement with anew, who's our apprenticeship contractor, for apprenticeship outreach and outreach purposes as well. So this here is just a screenshot of the passport eligibility checker. I primarily put this here for, I know financial aid administrators are very familiar with this, but we have a broader population in this session. So this is here for our designated support staff and our other community service providers. that may be in the session today. So this is a screenshot of the passport eligibility checker in the portal. I'd like to point out that there's added security language on the page for authorized users only. That again might not seem like a really big deal, but we wanted to make sure that the screen was actually, or that this site was actually locked down, and that we're ensuring that only appropriate people can be using the site. So where prompted, administrators will need to enter a student's date of birth and either their full last name or the last 4 digits of their social security number. Entering a student's partial last name will not produce any results. So the other thing is that we made some of these changes last year, but after making some of the changes on the checker page, we had made the decision to remove the bulk upload function. And we heard from institutions that that was a bad idea. So we asked our IT department, and thankfully they were able to bring that back for you. So hopefully that helps you with the processing of student eligibility on the portal. So after you enter a student's information, this is the screen that will appear. If a student is eligible, a green check box will appear under the eligible column. I'm going to try to hover right here. I think you guys can see that. The classification column right here identifies what type of foster care or unaccompanied, what type of classification the student is in to make them eligible for passport. So there's 4 types of categories. As you can see here, the student is UHY, which means that they're unaccompanied homeless youth. SFY is state foster youth. URM is unaccompanied refugee minor or the federal foster youth. And TRB is students who have experienced tribal foster care. The QER right here identifies the number of quarters of eligibility remaining. Financial aid administrators will also find this definition by hovering your mouse over this little blue eye, the blue dot with the eye in it. And then the student support service release here, this column adds the financial, provides a financial aid administrator with the ability to document a student's release of information for outreach and support services by a WSAC contractor, which is typically the College Success Foundation. Let me click here. So this box right here, this will appear when the financial aid administrator clicks the log student support services link. And then you'll see that, as I mentioned earlier, the student is documented as unaccompanied homeless youth. So if a student stops attending, there's a gap in their enrollment, and then they're able to stabilize their housing, then the financial aid administrator can come in and click on this cancel UHY button to remove that student's eligibility for passport. I'm going to pause here again, see if there's any other questions that have come in.
There are no questions.
Okay, no new questions? All righty.
Correct.
So even though we have a really robust data sharing agreement with DCYF, WSAC is we still need the ability to collect consent from student populations that may not be served by DCYF. So this updated consent form, which I wanted to point out to you that the consent forms were updated to make them more easily read. This consent form allows WSAC to verify student eligibility for passport with other organizations that have oversight on the student's dependency, such as DSHS with the federal foster youth or tribal courts. Unaccompanied homeless youth, I want to make this clear, they do not need to fill out this consent form because their eligibility is determined by the financial aid office. The student consent is also completed through the WASFA or FAFSA, or by completing the common application, which is the electronic application for the education training voucher housed at DCYF. Students who experience tribal foster care under the jurisdiction of a tribal court must also complete a tribal verification form in addition to their consent form. WSAC does not currently have any data sharing agreements with any of the 29 federally recognized tribes in Washington state. The students are asked to have a tribal representative, such as a case manager or a social worker, verify their status and sign the form. The forms must be submitted to WSAC so that we can retain that as documentation of their eligibility. So as I mentioned earlier, in most cases, unaccompanied homeless youth will have their passport eligibility determined by the financial aid office. So WSAC had developed this form for in-house purposes, but many institutions had asked for some kind of verification form for student files. This form is available to institutions if they find it useful. It's not a requirement for institutions to use this form. So the other thing I wanted to mention is that if an institution has a difficult to determine case, they may refer the student to WSAC for an eligibility review. And this is something, what I'm mentioning here is something that we made a slight change in the program manual to reflect this need, but passport eligibility for unaccompanied homeless youth should not be re-verified each year unless there's a gap in enrollment aside from summer term or in the result of a state of emergency like the pandemic. So once a student is determined eligible for passport as an unaccompanied homeless youth, their eligibility maintains, even if they are able to stabilize their housing in the future, unless there's a gap in enrollment. So many institutions find their passport eligible students in many different ways. And you know, I basically tell institutions what works best for you. Like, you do what works best for you. Just know that WSAC can support you in this by providing financial aid administrators with a list of students who indicated an interest in attending their institution and their FAFSA or WASFA. The FAFSA list simply states that a student is eligible for passport, but does not identify what makes them eligible for passport. So it doesn't say the subgroup, whether or not they're unaccompanied homeless youth or the type of foster care that they're in. Institutions are also encouraged to review data collected from their foster youth and unaccompanied homeless youth and their admissions and registration materials. And you may also work, and this is something that I definitely recommend, work with social service providers in your area, such as a member of the setup or treehouse teams, or staff from the College Success Foundation to receive referrals, receive student referrals. Again, like I mentioned earlier, ultimately institutions determine what works best for them, and that often frequently includes using multiple of these methods. And then if you have any tips, let us know. Feel free to contact us. Let us know what works well for you. Okay, I'm going to transition here. And Carla, do we have any questions?
What's the reasoning for unless there's a gap in enrollment for unaccompanied homeless youth?
It's about equity, honestly. So foster youth, once they're determined eligible, their foster youth status doesn't change. They continue to be eligible. For unaccompanied homeless youth, you know, they're probably still, you know, they could be experiencing some housing instability, even if they might be in you know, in a lease or something, or in a little bit more stable housing. So what we found is that the foster youth and unaccompanied homeless youth, they still have the same types of challenges. And so it's better to just maintain that stability and continue supporting them through the passport program. Okay, anything else?
No additional questions.
All righty, move on. So these are just a few quick reminders for administrators. One of the things is that we ask financial aid administrators to request funding for students each quarter. Please don't wait till the end of the academic year and then send all of your payment requests in, because that really causes a lot of issues with funding. Passport funds are limited, and by delaying the funding request, you can risk a student not receiving their passport funds. And then just a quick reminder, passport students who have experienced foster care continue to receive priority funding for the State Work Study Program. And then I also wanted to mention that the 2021-22 Passport Program Manual now includes a section for passport designated support staff. Just know that this is a work in progress, and we're going to continue building it out as a resource. So we've put the most important things in there, but we will, you know, ask you for feedback if there's something that's missing and you need more information from us. we're happy to continue building that. It's a work in progress, and you know, we do definitely appreciate your feedback on that. "45 institutions have agreed to provide Passport students with additional support services. In exchange for implementing a viable support plan, institutions receive student support payments. The agreements that are in place currently will be expiring in June of 2022, and new agreements will be coming out to institutions in the spring. So just a heads up on that. At that time, institutions are also going to be asked to review and resubmit their viable student support plans when the new agreements are signed. And Carla, you popped up. I'm guessing there might be a question.
Related to the last slide, unaccompanied homeless youth don't get priority funding state work study, correct?
That is correct.
And do we request passport funds through Seesaw?
Yes, you do request passport funds through Seesaw.
That's all.
Okay, thank you. This just really quickly, couple of reminders here. First of all, there was a name change to the Passport Student Support Funds. They were previously known as incentive grants, but what we found is that caused a lot of confusion on college campuses. And then the Passport Student Success Plans were previously referred to as the viable plans. So sometimes, I mean, I've been working in this program since 2007. You'll hear me slip and call it two things. I'm still referring to the same thing. We just officially went through and made a name change. And then, as I mentioned on the previous slide, make sure your institution is reviewing your student success plan annually so that it can be adjusted to meet the needs of both the institution and the students that you're serving. So between the pandemic, remote learning, budget limitations, all those types of things that were happening, this year was a year unlike any in program history. So it was very just wonky. New Passport Student Support Fund money received by the institution in the 2020-2021 academic year may be rolled over into next year if it goes unspent in the current year. This is because we know that we're sending the institutions money late in the academic year, and it's going to be close to impossible for the institutions to spend all of those student support funds in basically a month and a half. Last year, the Passport leadership team, along with some researchers, put a lot of work into developing questions for the annual Passport Student Support Fund report. This year, Calvin and I are still working on the details for the reporting process because of the changes in the way that we made payments to the institutions. At this point, I think the questions are going to be pretty similar to what we've done in the past, with the understanding of the unusual funding patterns and time constraints that institutions are experiencing right now. Just a heads up, reports are typically due at the end of August, and it could require from some of the designated support staff to be working with financial aid administrators. And if you're going through this and you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to either Calvin and I. We're happy to help you navigate this process. This is something I've been talking about for about a year now. But since the current WAC was written 12 years ago, it is no longer in alignment with the statute that's in place. This is something that WSAC is working on, and just a heads up that we'll be asking for some feedback from financial aid administrators, designated support staff, and the Passport leadership team as well. This slide just provides you with some resources that are available for the different types of support for Passport students. Institutions, of course, can use student support funds. WSAC is continuing to do some outreach to current and upcoming students through direct email and texting campaigns. The College Success Foundation has a small pool of money that can be used for emergency funding for students. And then Together We Rise, that the initial pot of initial funding source has expired. So, and they provided nearly $100,000. Sorry about that. To Washington's foster youth for support during the pandemic. And like I said, those funds have now expired, but they're working on finding other funding sources to help to be able to continue similar services to Washington students. Okay, and I'm gonna move on. So I've mentioned the Passport Leadership Team a couple of times throughout this presentation. And this group of about 30 professionals from a variety of different professional backgrounds meet on a quarterly basis or more frequently for subcommittee work. This year, we recently elected co-chairs for the upcoming year, and they are Maria Reyna at Eastern Washington University and Whitney Carlson from Catholic Child and Family Services in Yakima. The Passport Leadership Team helps by providing insight, feedback, and helps me keep a pulse on the issues that are being experienced through serving Passport students. PLT members have absolutely been troopers throughout the pandemic. They've met frequently to discuss challenges, needs, and successes that students and schools were experiencing as a result of the stay-at-home mandate. They are totally dedicated to the work that we do, and I sincerely appreciate the contributions that they're making to the program. I'll touch on Passport to Apprenticeships just really lightly here. WSAC has contracted with anew to assist students participating in a registered apprenticeship or pre-apprenticeship. Passport to Apprenticeship opportunities helps cover occupational related costs such as tuition, fees, work, clothes, rain gear, boots, and other occupational related tools. anew works with students interested in pursuing a broad range of apprenticeship programs. This includes manufacturing, construction, healthcare, IT. There's even some cosmetology programs. And they work in a broad service area. They are primarily based in the Seattle area, but they are working on getting students connected to apprenticeships outside of the Puget Sound region. Deontay Damper was recently hired to replace Emily Stochel, and he has been amazing. He's jumped in with both feet, and he's just been wonderful. So feel free to reach out to him if you have any questions, or if you know of any students that might benefit from an apprenticeship or pre-apprenticeship program. The setup program is also part of the Passport program. It's a statewide program serving students between the ages of 13 and 21 with successfully transitioning into college, career, or service. The program serves about 350 students each year and provides students with assistance such as completing the FAFSA WASFA, college admissions applications, scholarship application completion, and many more things such as career interest inventories, all types of things. WSAC currently contracts with 6 organizations. In Spokane, which is Region 1 North, it's Volunteers of America. In the Yakima Tri-Cities area, which is considered Region 1 South, is Catholic Charities. Mount Vernon is Region 2 North, that's YouthNet. The Seattle area, which is considered Region 2 South, is the YMCA. Tacoma, Region 3 North, is Pierce County Alliance. And in Olympia, which is Region 3 South, is Community Youth Services. The program manual, we've done quite a bit of work on it this year. It has been updated and is going to be posted on the WSAC website. There aren't too many changes that's outside from what I've already mentioned here, except that we've added that new section for the DSSs. There's a ton of resources available also on the WSAC website, including a student guide, outreach flyers for administrators and support staff to use, frequently asked questions, And I did want to mention that the Ready Set Grad website is in the process of sunsetting. In fact, it might already be taken down. I think there's been a couple of times that I've gone and checked, and the pages have gone away for Passport. But be reassured that all of the information that's on that was on the Ready Set Grad website are now have been transitioned over to the Passport pages on the WSAC website. There are also resources aimed at administrators on the Washington Passport Network website. And those include, like I mentioned earlier, the recorded webinars, Passport Student Support Fund guidance, and other really good materials for administrators. And then I just wanted to mention that we do publish materials and we update them regularly. So if you have something that you're using on a daily basis, I would recommend that you go in and check, make sure that you aren't using an out-of-date form. For example, the passport consent forms, we did make some pretty significant changes to that this year, not necessarily in the information that's being collected, but in the way that it's being used and its usability for students as well. And I cannot end this presentation without putting in a plug for the Passport Conference. We will be holding a virtual conference this year, again in November, and CSF is currently in the planning process of that, and they'll be sending out additional information in the future. And then again, as I mentioned in the previous slide, there's many recorded trainings available through the Washington Passport Network, and you can find them all on the YouTube channel, and this is a link to the YouTube channel itself. And then, Carla, I think we have a question.
We do. The question is, I just want to be sure about the summer quarter. I have a student who is attending next quarter, summer 2021 school year awarding. I can put her awards into place, question.
So this would be, it would be a summer one header school for the 2021 academic year. You can put that in place, but we cannot process any new payments for the new next academic year until after we get everything settled for budgeting for the next year. But if they were for the 2021 academic year, yes, you can go ahead and process them.
And they're asking about a summer 2 award, so they would be able to put that in place, but we will be issuing guidance before we can issue final payments.
Yes. And then this is, oh, anything else?
That's it.
Okay, so this is your Passport team at WSAC. This is how you can contact us. If you ever have any questions, we're always happy to help. I'm really, I feel really lucky to be working with Calvin and Carla every single day. And if I don't have the answer, one of us will. So feel free to reach out if you ever have any questions. And then I think that's it. So if there's, I think we have one more question here.
Has the 21-22 award amount been released, or is it remaining at the $2,000?
So the 21-22 academic year awards have not been released yet. That is something that we're still trying to figure out. And that, again, like I said, as soon as we get it figured out, we will be sending a message out to financial aid administrators.
Looks like that's the last of the questions.
All right. Well, everyone, thanks for sticking with me first thing on a Thursday morning. I think that's it. If you have any questions again, feel free to reach out. Oh, wait, something else popped up, I think.
It was somebody saying thank you.
Oh, okay. All right. Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful day. Take good care.